Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Bradford. Alongside me is Logan Camden, and today we are doing our full Super Bowl preview. We did a Super Bowl mailbag episode last week where we answered some of your guys' questions. Today we are diving into all of the keys in this matchup and how we expect things to shake out. But before we get into some of those specific keys, Logan, what just stands out to you initially when you look at this matchup that we have coming up?
It's really similar to the NFC title game, and what I mean by that is just the stylistical matchup that we're going to get between both of these teams. It's the number 2 scoring offense on the year, New England, versus the number 1 scoring defense in Seattle. When we look at the historical precedent for matchups like this, it actually really heavily favors the number 1 defense. Number 1 defenses versus top 2 scoring offenses in the Super Bowl are 8-1 in the complete history. Carson, real quick trivia time. Do you know who the 1 offense was?
That's a great question. Let's think about some of these matchups in recent years. So obviously the 2018 Rams got shut down by the Patriots. The 2013 Broncos got shut down by the Seahawks.
I'll give you a hint. One of the biggest blowouts in Super Bowl history.
That's interesting. It's not the 89 Niners versus the Broncos, is it? Wow.
Super Bowl 24, 55-10. That is the only time the top 2 scoring offense came out on top against the number 1 defense. So the precedent does favor Seattle. And like I mentioned, in the NFC title game, we did see Seattle already take down the number 1 offense in terms of points per game. And we've seen them beat that team twice this year. The Rams were one of only 3 instances this year when opposing offenses scored 25 or more points on the Seattle defense this year. It was the Rams twice, and it was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers once. The Seahawks come into this game. They've won 9 straight. The Patriots coming into this game have won 16 of their last 17 games. And their turnaround is huge in this one. We mentioned this in the Super Bowl mailbag episode, but they were 4-13 last season to now they're on the brink of potentially winning the Super Bowl. They are the first team in NFL history to reach the Super Bowl after a 13-plus loss season, and they are in some rare company. We mentioned all these teams in the mailbag episode, but it's reminiscent of the 2001 Pats, who went 5-11 next year, were in the Super Bowl. The 99 Rams, 4-12, won the Super Bowl, and then the 81 Niners as well. All 3 of those teams won the Super Bowl. I'm super excited, man, about the stylistical contrast. What a unique matchup this is, man. And like on a broader scale, the quarterback matchup of these guys, like it's just so interesting. You know, normally we have a reoccurring face, a dragon that needs to be slayed, right? If it's Mahomes, if it's Brady, like we are in uncharted waters kind of here, man. It is guys who have never been on this kind of stage before. Drake Maye in his second season as a starting quarterback. Darnold, the guy who was, ran out of town in New York on his redemption arc. It's one of the most interesting Super Bowls, I think, of my lifetime.
It's definitely sick, and we mentioned this on the mailbag episode, but the fact that this is the first Super Bowl ever in which both teams preseason had more than 50-1 odds to ultimately win the Super Bowl. The Seahawks were 60-1. The Patriots were 80-1. It is an incredibly unique matchup in that way. And I do think the Patriots are, rightly so, in my opinion, viewed as a pretty clear underdog in this matchup by a lot of people. But I have seen some people speculating about, like, are they the worst team ever to make the Super Bowl, which I think is crazy. I think that's totally unfair to this team. I think that there are multiple Patriots teams alone in their franchise history that have made the Super Bowl that are worse than this team. The 85 team that got destroyed by the Bears, the 96 team. Like, I think maybe that's just a lack of some of the historical context there, but I do want to give credit to this team, even though they did have a historically easy regular season schedule, and we can look at some of the playoff offenses they faced and said, That's deeply underwhelming. Nevertheless, this is a team that has gone 17-3 overall this year. And at the end of the day, now we're in a one-off situation. Their defense has been on fire. They have Drake Maye. Like, if they win the Super Bowl, nobody's ever going to ask that question again, because the 2007 Giants, yeah, they would have been at the top of that list, right? Worst Super Bowl teams ever until they won. The 2011 Giants, same goes for them. So let's not approach this game as if the Patriots do not have a real chance to win it, because they do. One more thing, just in terms of like the overarching themes of this one that you were touching on. I do think it feels very different than a lot of the elite offense versus elite defense matchups we've seen, if it's in the Super Bowl or in playoffs in recent years, or even last week, Rams Seahawks, because the Patriots offense hasn't been playing well as of late. Because coming into this game, their playoff run has been all about the defense putting up historic numbers, and the offense has performed equivalent to the worst in the NFL, like in terms of their playoff numbers. 15.7 offensive points per game, 4.4 yards per play, equivalent to the Cleveland Browns, dead last in the NFL this year, a third down conversion rate that would have ranked dead last in the NFL. So that's where the context for this does feel different. The Patriots may have been an elite regular season offense, but this feels much more like a defensive battle to me heading into it, considering how New England has been playing as of late. And obviously, it's been the Seahawks defense that has carried them throughout this year, that has been such a stellar, dominant unit. So let's start by looking actually at that Patriots defense, Logan. Can they keep eating quarterbacks alive as they did through the first 3 rounds? And how does Sam Darnold fare in that matchup?
It's a good question. I mean, Darnold has been elite in these playoffs under pressure, and I think that's one of the most interesting dynamics of this game. It's a stark contrast in the regular season. Darnold and Maye have almost done this Freaky Friday kind of swap under pressure when it comes to the regular season and playoffs.
Yeah.
Darnold in the regular season, I believe, was the 6th worst quarterback in the NFL under pressure in terms of EPA. 6 touchdowns, 6 picks, 69.4 passer rating in the regular season, while Drake Maye was the number 1 quarterback under pressure by EPA. You flip it to the playoffs, Darnold, 4 TDs, no picks, 108.4 passer rating under pressure. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. And against the Rams, just dissected them. This is a guy who a year ago against the Rams crumbled, completely fell apart under pressure, made a bunch of mistakes. He looked composed, he looked poised, and he handled business. It's a huge question, and I think Seattle establishing the run, I think both of these teams establishing the run is going to be a huge component of that as well. I'm a little more confident in Seattle's pass protection than I am them really establishing the run, and that's due to Milton Williams and Barmore in the middle. But I actually think I'm fairly confident with Darnold against this New England pass rush. And a lot of that has to do with experience. I think that I can kind of take for granted just experience in general at the quarterback position for granted sometimes, where, it may have taken Darnold a while to find his footing, right? May have more of this embedded kind of reputation, right? We've only seen 2 seasons of Drake Maye, and in his second season, he gives you an MVP caliber campaign where he could be, taking home that trophy, right? Darnold came out of college and was discarded by the Jets, had to back up on teams and then find his footing. And so you can kind of look at it and be like, oh, Maye's so much better than Darnold. I don't really think there's a big gap there. And if you were to ask me right now, even though Drake Maye had the MVP season, with the football that they've been playing, there's no doubt in my mind that I have more confidence in Sam Darnold going into this football game. I know that may sound crazy. I think Maye can mitigate some of this lack of faith I have with him with his legs, but I feel like Darnold has been playing better football. He has more experience in games like this. Again, I think that can sometimes get overstated. But more importantly, I trust his tackles against their pass rush more than vice versa. Seattle's offensive line is constructed in a very interesting way. Their tackles are more so better and responsible for their pass protection, while their interior offensive line is really responsible for getting that push for Kenneth Walker up the middle and really running the ball. But I think Seattle's D-line is going to disrupt the Pats' O-line a little bit more. And so, yeah, it's weird that I came to this conclusion, but I thought about it before we shot our episode, man. I actually feel like I'm a little bit more confident in Darnold heading into this game and his ability to hang up under pressure than I am Maye. And I've got some numbers on Maye that I'll get into here in a second, but I want to hear your thoughts too, man. What are your feelings about Darnold heading into this game?
That's interesting. Absolutely, in terms of playoff performance, clearly Darnold has been better than Maye, but I do tend to value the larger sample size more, and the reality is Drake Maye played a lot of elite football under pressure, and Sam Darnold struggled a lot under pressure over the regular season. So the gap in my confidence in terms of having Maye above Darnold has diminished in the playoffs. I still think if you're telling me, all right, you got to put all your chips in on one guy, purely in terms of quarterback performance in this game, I still trust Maye more if we're looking at things in a vacuum. When we consider the competition, I do still think that Maye is facing the substantially better defense, as great as the Patriots have been playing as of late. But Darnold, absolutely sensational against the Rams. And not just that, he wasn't just amazing in the biggest game of his career. He vanquished his demons in terms of playing so incredibly well, specifically under pressure, against the team that has given him the most trouble in the NFL. So it's an A++ performance from him. That being said, I don't think that wipes away that he was 28th in EPA per dropback under pressure in the regular season, that he did lead the NFL with 20 turnovers, that he had 13 turnovers over the final 9 games of the regular season. I do still think there is that potential for him to panic and make mistakes under pressure. And I want to be clear, I think Darnold is very good, but I think if you are looking at a fallibility of this Seahawks team, if they are going to lose, it is very likely going to be because this Patriots defense that has been playing really well overwhelms this flawed Seahawks offense that was good, not great this year, 11th in points per drive, and Darnold probably struggles and underperforms if the Seahawks lose this game. So I think you have to look at that as kind of the key that has to go right, because you take a level of defensive excellence for granted with them. Darnold is a swing factor here, especially going up against a defense that through 3 weeks of the playoffs, Logan, has 12 sacks, 8 takeaways, and 26 total points allowed. That's what New England has done. Historic stuff. In terms of their EPA per dropback allowed in the playoffs, Logan, that mark is negative 0.54. For reference, Brady Cook this year, one of the very worst quarterbacks to ever start for a football team, had an EPA per dropback of negative 0.47. So the Patriots are forcing opposing quarterbacks to perform worse than Brady Cook in these playoffs. Of course, they have faced 3 pretty shitty offenses. The Chargers were actually an above average regular season offense, but the offensive line situation was so dire and they just got eaten alive there, and nothing in the run game, and Herbert played badly. Texans offensive line sucked, and Stroud was a complete disaster, and they had nothing in the run game. And then the Broncos offense was mediocre with Bo Nix, and then you put Jared Stidham in his spot, and he really single-handedly cost them the game. So of course, that context makes the Patriots defensive numbers look even more incredible, but nevertheless, what they have been doing has been highly, highly disruptive to opposing quarterbacks and to opposing offenses. And the way they do that is really by blitzing at an extremely high rate. 38% blitz rate. That's the second highest in the playoffs. They are dependent on the blitz because they don't have a great pass rush just with 4 up front. Now, they do have an ability to create some interior pressure that we'll talk about, but in terms of their edge play, they're much more average there. But they do have a way to create pressure, and it is by blitzing a ton. And Darnold, when blitzed and pressured this year, was just 17th in EPA per dropback. So there is a vulnerability there. We have seen him play a masterclass like we did against the Rams this past week. We have seen him play a horrible game like he did against the Rams in their first regular season meeting. So it's a lot of pressure on him to be stellar again, certainly to avoid the big mistake, because I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, and you just cannot give the Patriots defense the opportunity to capitalize on a turnover and turn that into points for their offense, especially when you have such an elite defense for Seattle. Like, you just need to not make your defense's job harder. I do think Darnold is going to have to make plays on top of that, but this is absolutely one of the biggest keys that we look at. Ultimately, I think Darnold is probably going to be fine in this game. I'm not expecting him to carve the Patriots up, and I'm not expecting him to melt down against the Patriots. But I do think that is one of the potential vulnerabilities for the Seattle team. And again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm always doubting Darnold, skeptical of Darnold. I just think there's so much about this Seahawks team that is so reliably elite, and Darnold is not that. And this Patriots defense has been playing really well, and they are going to really look to force him into a big mistake and hopefully win the game on the back of that, get some sacks. Like, that's a huge part of the formula for the Patriots.
No doubt. I'm just not ready to absolve Drake Maye of – I'm not confident in Drake Maye coming into this game either. Like, I say that I marginally favor Darnold in terms of my confidence. Drake Maye has done nothing in these playoffs to tell me or indicate to me that he is ready for this moment and ready for this game. Yes, he won all of these games. And yes, I have given him a little bit of a pass because of the dire weather conditions in some of these games as well. But – Maye, in this playoff run, has some of the most damning statistics I've ever seen of a starting Super Bowl quarterback. Through 3 games, he has been sacked 15 times. Again, granted, some of this is a part of his offensive line, but we have to consider everything. He's got 2 rookies starting on the left side of his offensive line, and both of those guys have repeatedly gotten him into trouble during this playoff run. Again, I'm going to repeat that number. He's been sacked 15 times through 3 games. That's the second most times a quarterback has been sacked in a single playoff run. Number 1 is 2021 Joe Burrow with 19. He's got the second highest sack percentage in a playoff run in NFL history at 16.3%. Number 1 is 1971 Roger Staubach at 16.39%. Drake Maye has the second most fumbles in a single playoff run with 6. Number 1 is 7, 1978 Terry Bradshaw. And finally, Maye also has the second most turnovers in a single playoff run by a Super Bowl starting quarterback with 5. Number 1 is 2006 Peyton Manning with 6. The good news for Drake, 3 of those quarterbacks that I mentioned, Staubach, Bradshaw, and Manning, all ended up they lifted the Lombardi trophy at the end of the game. But that's kind of my hang-up here. Is like, yes, I know that Drake Maye put together this miraculous regular season, this MVP-caliber regular season. The only thing that Drake Maye has impressed me with in these playoffs have been his legs. I have been woefully underwhelmed by every other aspect of his quarterback play, and part of that is his fault, right? He set incredible expectations for him heading into these playoffs, but I'm not going to, and I know that Drake Maye is one of the big reasons why this team was so successful in the regular season and won so many games, but he just hasn't shown me anything in these playoffs that before the big game, I'm ready to come in here and say, oh yeah, that's my horse. I'm riding and dying with Drake Maye. I know what he's capable of. I know how good he is, but it has been a pretty putrid, 3 games in the playoffs for Drake Maye's first career run.
It totally has. And I think that Drake Maye discourse absolutely sucks right now because it feels like people are gravitating to one of 2 poles for the most part, which is either the Patriots have won, Drake Maye advanced to the Super Bowl, that's all that matters. Like, this is a good thing on his resume, when in reality, Drake Maye has been terrible in these playoffs. And the Patriots offense has performed worse than any offense to ever advance to the Super Bowl in the playoffs. Or people are going to the polar opposite side and they're saying, because Drake Maye has been so bad in these playoffs, Drake Maye has actually been a fraud all along. Drake Maye hasn't been that good. When in reality, he was just amazing in the regular season. I thought he deserved to be MVP. He propelled this average offensive supporting cast to being an elite unit. He was fantastic. And in the playoffs, he's been really bad, and his team has still won because the defense has been absolutely exceptional, and they've also faced this slate of really bad opposing offenses. So I think, again, the discourse right now with him is very silly, and there's not a lot of people who are just honestly stating that it is possible for a quarterback to play incredibly in the regular season and then be really bad in a 3-game playoff stretch, but his team still wins. But that bad 3-game stretch doesn't define him as a quarterback because the 17-game regular season sample is just much more useful, right? It's a much larger sample size of this guy playing at a certain level that is much higher. That's where there's this whole balancing act of not really being sure what we're going to get from Maye in this game. That being said, I do still believe he's just the superior talent to Darnold. I do think overall this year he managed pressure better. I do think his ability to use his legs is obviously something that he can lean on in these games. And I agree, it's been the only good thing that he's done so far in these playoffs. But I can't ignore the elite accuracy, the elite arm talent, the mobility, all these things that made him great in the regular season. He just has to keep the composure. He has to be much better in terms of his pocket feel and awareness when it comes to not taking sacks, when it comes to not cocking back the ball at a time where he's in harm's way of a strip sack. Like, all that stuff he's done in these playoffs is completely inexcusable. But I don't think that means that it isn't possible that Drake Maye bounces back and plays much better. So where I'm landing with Drake Maye at this point is I'm not as confident in him as I was coming into the playoffs, but I certainly don't think he's nearly as bad as he has played through these 3 playoff games. And when I think about these two teams' formulas to winning this game, there's so much more on Drake Maye's plate if New England is going to win. Like, I think much more is required of him just because the Seattle defense is so damn special. The New England defense has carried them to this point. I don't think it's going to carry them like that for a 4th straight game. I think there is going to be more pressure on Maye to be a special playmaker, to elevate those around him than there probably is on Darnold. And right now, that's a really big task, especially against this defense, because in the playoffs, Drake Maye, who, like you said, was first in EPA per dropback under pressure in the regular season, in the playoffs, 11th of 15th quarterbacks in that category. And he's only above CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, and Jarrett Stidham. So 3 quarterbacks who have faced the Patriots defense and sucked, and then 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers going up against the Texans. And he's going to get pressured a lot, man. Like, Drake Maye has faced the 7th highest pressure rate overall this season. And part of that is absolutely his offensive line struggling, and the left side of that line in particular going up against a really ferocious Seattle pass rush is a very concerning potential mismatch for New England. But also, as you said, taking 15 sacks, like, that falls on him in these playoffs because it's 15 sacks on 31 pressures. So sure, he's getting pressured a lot, but he's handling that pressure poorly, getting sacked 15 times, fumbling 6 times. That's unacceptable. That is so detrimental to your offense, and that is on him. He's going to be pressured. How does he manage that pressure has been the difference between regular season Drake Maye and playoff Drake Maye, and it very well could be the difference in terms of who wins this game, or at least how the Patriots offense performs in this game against the Seattle defense that in the regular season and playoffs combined, 4th in pressure rate, elite pass rush, while having the 5th lowest blitz rate in the NFL. They've got that elite, most desirable combination of being able to generate elite pressure without having to send extra pass rushers. They're top 4 in pressure rate when they don't blitz. They're top 4 in pressure rate when they do blitz. So how does Drake Maye perform against a defense that can get a ton of pressure without blitzing, and they're elite in coverage, and they're so elite against the run that he may not get a lot of help in the run game? Like, it's an extremely tall task. And I do think this Seahawks defense is so talented, so well scouted, so well coached. Like, I don't think Drake Maye is going to be able to rip off 60 rushing yards in this game like he has been able to do twice in these playoffs. You think that he could? I mean, he could, I guess,
no,
but
I
think the Seahawks are going to be so keyed in on that.
Maybe. I don't know. I look at that as one of the advantages for the New England offense. In these playoffs, he's had 9 scrambles for 125 yards. That's nearly 14 yards per carry. In the next-gen stats era, that's the most yards per scramble of any quarterback in a playoff run. And in the regular season, Seattle allowed the 5th most yards per carry to quarterbacks and were 14th against quarterback scrambles. So when I do look at a potential weakness for this team, it's not necessarily that the Seahawks aren't scouted or ready for Drake Maye to scramble. It's more so that their coverage on the back end is so great that, you know, some plays they just don't have a spy. Like, I do look at that as I look at it as something that is exploitable for this New England offense. And Maye has been elite. I meant to mention this stat earlier. Maye is one of 4 quarterbacks to rush for 65-plus yards in 2 or more games in a single playoff run. Like, it's him. I can't remember all the names. It's him, Josh Allen, Colin Kaepernick, and I believe one other quarterback. But I actually do look at that as pretty important for the Patriots. I think Maye is going to have to break off a few of those in a big way for the Patriots to win.
Probably true that he will have to. I think that is obviously much easier said than done against this Seattle defense. But I agree with you in terms of the Patriots passing game. Like, it doesn't get tougher than this. And you look at Stephon Diggs and the Patriots receivers, Kayshon Boutte, against this elite secondary. Like, this is an extremely difficult matchup. This Seahawks pass defense is absolutely sensational. I saw a crazy stat. There are 3 guys in the playoffs who have had at least 60 coverage snaps and they haven't allowed a single completion. 2 of those guys are Seahawks, Kobe Bryant and Julian Love. And that doesn't even include like their 3 damn good corners. That's just the safety duo right there. So it's a special group. And I think that is concretely advantage Seattle. And maybe that is where you look at, okay, if you're facing airtight coverage, at some point, Drake might just have to find that window to escape. He's been the most accurate quarterback overall this year on those tight window throws, but he's also been the guy who has generated like the most explosive deep passing plays. That's where I think the Patriots are going to have a harder time finding 1 or 2 of those against Seattle than any other team. Even Houston, who I think is right there with Seattle. Those are the 2 best defenses in the NFL. The Patriots were able to connect on that shot play to Kayshon Boutte, right? That one long touchdown, because Houston was not as locked down in terms of never allowing long passing plays as Seattle has been. The Seahawks allowed the 2nd lowest explosive play rate of the last 15 years this season. And the Patriots offense has been very reliant in terms of the passing game on that explosiveness. So you combine that with the pressure that you are certainly expecting Maye to face, with a vulnerability for this Patriots offensive line where they're not facing as brutal a matchup in terms of pass rush, especially from the edges, as the Texans or the Broncos, but the matchup between that Patriots interior defensive line against the Seahawks interior offensive line is concerning to me, both in terms of their pass protection and their ability to run the ball. And again, even though the Patriots were an elite regular season offense, there's just a lot of different things here that point to a pretty clear advantage to Seattle on the defensive side of the ball that, again, makes me think we're probably looking at a low-scoring game here. And if the Patriots are going to win, it's probably going to have to be Drake Maye making a few exceptional plays where great offense is able to beat great defense, but the bar there is going to be extremely high. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in on America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. This week's Prize Picks has a special max discount for the big game live in the app now. Drake Maye just needs 1 passing yard for the max discount to win. Just add another player to your lineup, and if your picks hit, you can cash in.
It's super easy to get started on Prize Picks as they're available in all 50 states. And with the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tailor-fade our picks with just 1 click. Prize Picks also now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes.
Download the Prize Picks app today and use code NERDSESH to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code NERDSESH to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right.
I think Maye's going to have to use his legs. I think the Patriots are going to have to hit on explosive plays. That's easier said than done. They were 4th in explosive play rate on the season. Seattle allowed a season-high 15 explosive plays to the Rams in the NFC title game. But again, a lot of that is due to the fact that they have Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, and that's a lot of one-on-one matchups where Stafford's basically just throwing jump or go balls and saying, hey, you're better than the defensive back, go get it. I don't see that kind of personnel on the outside for New England. That being said,
nor that kind of offensive line. Like, yeah. I mean, the Rams' offense is just much, much more stacked than the Patriots. I think they're honestly in a different tier.
That being said, I think the most important thing for New England's offense is going to be establishing the run and keeping a balanced attack. I have not liked how Drake Maye has looked with all of the weight of the world on his shoulders, even though Stevenson has played really well. I think it would be a mistake to expect, like, to just say, hey, we got to put the offense all on you. I am trying to get this running game going. Stevenson has been excellent over his last 5 games, 102 total yards per game, 6.8 yards per touch. Like, I think that's as important as everything else, is just them getting Stevenson going and trying to lull Seattle into a bad tendency. Like, because I agree with you. I don't think New England is talented enough on offense to just go at them the way the Rams went at Seattle, right? The Rams we're going to run our play, we're better than you, we're going to score on you, and they did for the most part, right? Like the Rams offense got what they wanted, and it was Darnold outplaying Stafford. So I think for the Patriots, you're not going to be able to just out-talent this Seattle team. I think it's going to be you've got to catch them off guard. And so if I'm McDaniels, I'm trying to get the running game going early and get some single back looks where I can get play action off of that and maybe just get one-on-one. Because like you're saying, it's not going to be easy getting these explosive plays to hit, but if there is a guy that can do it, Drake Maye was the most accurate quarterback in football this year. He was the most accurate deep ball thrower in football this year. And if he can get that one-on-one look on the outside, he's not going to have to hit on 10 of them. He needs to hit on 2 to 3 of them, and that could swing this game. Like 30 to 40-yard plays where you're flipping the field and you're turning that play into points. But I fear if the Patriots get down early in this game or the rushing attack gets stomped out, you're going to become way too one-dimensional, and I think Seattle is going to eat New England alive. And so a lot of this is easier said than done, but I don't think it's all going to be on Drake Maye. Again, Maye's got to hit on a couple of these explosive plays. He's got to be opportunistic and aggressive with his legs. But I think for New England overall, you've got to make sure that you just don't get too one-dimensional because that's where I fear that it could be like a Seattle blowout, where it's, hey, Drake, drop back every time. And I don't know. I just see like Will Campbell or Jared Wilson getting eaten alive on that left side and Drake Maye catching a couple licks where I think Stevenson is going to be vitally important in this game as well.
Absolutely, I agree. But once again, I think there's nobody who is harder to run the football against than Seattle. They were the number one run defense this year in terms of yards allowed per attempt. They were the number one run defense in terms of EPA allowed per play. One interesting wrinkle that I'm interested in potentially seeing from the Patriots is if they go jumbo a decent bit in this game, how often are they bringing out a sixth offensive lineman?
They like bringing out that defensive tackle Tonga too in some of those short yardage situations.
True. I'm not necessarily talking about pure short yardage goal line spots.
I was just talking about. Yeah, no, I know what you're getting because they like to run nickel. It would be a good counter. Your big bodies versus their little bodies. The extra defensive back versus another big guy.
And we'll just see because the Patriots went to those jumbo looks a lot, especially in the second half against Denver. Now, that was a very different game script because their goal offensively was basically, hey, don't fuck it up at this point. And, like, they only had to put up 10 points to win that game. And I do think they are not going to be able to probably get anything really going in the passing game out of those jumbo looks because Seattle has shown such a consistency in terms of staying in nickel even as teams get bigger. So they are not going to match your personnel, which is where maybe in some of these heavier groups in general, right? The Patriots could have an advantage in the passing game. They could exploit another linebacker being out there on the field where the Seahawks aren't as crazy in pass coverage. I think the Seahawks are going to stay in nickel, which means if you're the Patriots and you get super big, like, you are going to try to beat them on the ground. You're going to have to beat them on the ground. And I still don't know if they can do that because the Seahawks run defense is that insane. But I think that'll be an interesting, probably part of the chess match we'll see the Patriots try out at some point. The run game has come along for them in the latter half of the year. I mean, last 7 weeks, they're averaging 159 rushing yards per game. Now, that is a bit skewed in the playoffs by Maye's scrambling production. They were running the ball better conventionally down the stretch of the regular season, but they have been leaning a lot on Drake's legs in terms of the run game in these playoffs. So I agree with you. I think if they can bully Seattle by going huge and getting something going in the run game, that's massive for this offense's viability because Seattle's defense, if you get to third and long, I mean, there's no worse spot to be in football. This was the number one third down defense. Again, they can pin their ears back in the pass rush. The coverage is elite, and you just really don't want to find yourself in those spots a lot, especially given all the third down issues the Patriots offense has had in these playoffs where they've been really awful. So overall, when we look at that New England offense versus Seattle defense matchup, I do think it is clear advantage Seattle to me because their defense has just been unreal. New England's offense has really struggled against elite defenses in recent weeks, right? I've seen a lot of people say, oh, well, New England's offensive performances actually haven't been that bad because they faced elite defenses. And they have. But you can face a great defense and still perform very poorly in that matchup. That's what New England is doing. Personally, I don't think 10 points or 16 points like they've scored in 2 of these games is going to get it done in the Super Bowl against Seattle. We're done making excuses for New England's offense. Like, they simply have to be better, and the opponent in front of them is as stout defensively as any they've seen.
They are. It's interesting, man. I think a lot of the keys that we're saying for one of these teams, I think, are also true for the other. Like, when I look at the Seattle side, too, I obviously think they have the best weapon on the field of either of these teams with Jackson Smith and Jigba. He would be my pick for Offensive Player of the Year. I think he's been dominant. But that being said, I actually think this is probably going to be Kenneth Walker and the Seattle interior offensive line, their toughest matchup in terms of establishing the run. Walker's been elite as well. Last 5, 122 yards per game, 6.4 yards per touch. He's got 16 explosive runs over the last 5 weeks. Like, he has been on a tear. That being said, Seattle was 30th rushing outside the tackles this season, and the difference is staggering. They averaged, this is over the last 5 weeks as well, Walker averaged 4.5 yards per carry outside the tackle to 7.2 yards per carry inside the tackles. What's interesting about that to me is that means that Walker, even though he's been most successful going up into the middle, that's where New England's most, strength is defensively. Right there at the point of attack with Barmore and with Milton Williams. It's like strength on strength. I think that is the best aspect of the Seattle rushing attack, and I think it is the best aspect of the Patriots' defensive rushing defense. So I think that's another thing to monitor as well. Like, it's just, if either of these teams can't get it going early on the ground, it's going to stress out both of these quarterbacks that neither of us are really all that confident in. You know what I mean? It's just going to stack, and it's going to make it that much harder on the guy under center. So that's where, when I come back to it, like, obviously I think I'm a little bit more confident in Walker being able to run the ball than Stevenson because of how great the entire Seattle team has been. But New England's rushing defense has been absolutely elite with Milton Williams and Barmore.
Yeah. No, dude, it's ridiculous. The difference in terms of the performance of their run defense, when they were without Milton Williams, they were allowing 147 rushing yards per game. They were getting gashed. In games with Milton Williams, which is a 15-game sample size, right? It's almost a full regular season. They allow 80.6 rushing yards per game. They've been just about as good as any run defense in the NFL. The guy's an absolute monster and looking to go back-to-back Super Bowls in 2 different spots. That'd be pretty cool. So that is a concerning matchup to me, the Seahawks interior offensive line versus the Patriots interior defensive line, because I think the Seattle tackles are quite good in pass protection. I think their interior offensive line is much more vulnerable, and as we've said, I think Milton Williams is the scariest defensive player you're facing up front, like, by far. He's the guy who could wreck this game. So that mediocre interior offensive line versus a very good interior defensive line, that could be a problem when it comes to pressure, and it's probably even more of an issue in the run game for Seattle.
Is he the best defensive player in the game?
Milton Williams? No. I think there's just too many studs on Seattle, and I think that Gonzalez is even the best player on the New England defense. There's a lot of great defensive players in this game, but I think for Seattle, you have to go a number of guys in that secondary. I also think even Leonard Williams is the best interior defensive lineman in this game. I think Leonard Williams is absolutely insane and even more impactful in the pass rush than Milton. But a lot of great defensive players in this game. He is one of the guys who could break this thing open, who could be a major problem for Seattle's offense. And like you're saying, that's what's so hard. It's really the run game, because Seattle's run game has come along in the latter stretches of the season. We talked about them earlier in the year, more so running at high volume to set up some of the play action passing stuff and set up some of the heavy personnel passing, and it was successful in that way, but they were very inefficient in terms of actually running the football. As the year has gone along, they found a lot more success running the football in their second regular season meeting against the Rams, against the Panthers, in back-to-back games against the Niners to end the regular season and the playoffs. They ran the ball with a lot of success, not so much against the Rams last week, so That's going to be a big swing factor for them. A lot on Kenneth Walker's plate, and as you're saying, an inclination to attack the perimeter with a lot of these runs, but also then the concern that they haven't been as effective on those runs when running to the outside. I still think they should do that more. I think trying to run up the middle against this Patriots defense, to me, is a potential recipe to be living in 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10 a lot. And I think you trust Walker to a certain extent to just be a playmaker out in space, because I think he is incredibly shifty. I think he can make people miss. I think he can create some yards after contact. And if he does that, again, you alleviate the pressure that there is on Darnold. But to me, the biggest thing that alleviates the pressure on Sam Darnold and the best player in this football game, we're talking about the best defensive player. The best player on the field is Jackson Smith-Njigba. And the matchup between him and Christian Gonzalez, who is absolutely elite in his own right, is a huge one. Because if JSN isn't winning that one-on-one matchup, that's a big problem for Seattle's offense, especially because New England likes to play a lot of man. So I think we're going to get a lot of those two dudes like straight up going at it. I still think that they should give Gonzo a lot of help. New England should, because JSN is just so special. You should always be covering him more so as a team. But Gonzo's been fantastic in the playoffs. I mean, 40.4 passer rating allowed, 4.7 yards per target allowed. He's been phenomenal. And the Seattle offense is extremely reliant on JSN, more so than any other passing attack is on any one player in the NFL. Nobody had a bigger share of their team's total receiving production. And, well, okay, obviously JSN led the league in receiving, but like the gap between him and Puka in terms of the total share of their team's receiving was sizable, right? Because the Rams passing attack overall was prolific and there were a lot of other guys eating. With Seattle, so much of this is on JSN. Nobody averaged more yards per target. And when Sam Darnold targeted JSN, he had over a 116 passer rating. When targeting all other Seahawks, just a 90 passer rating. So a huge difference tied to just this one dude. And so obviously you think if we're New England, okay, if we can just keep JSN in check, if we get a phenomenal game from Gonzalez, and overall are just able to really, that's probably the key to them kind of shutting down the Seattle offense, and one of the biggest keys to them winning this football game, because there's so much pressure on JSN in this offense. That being said, I just think JSN is too good. Like, he's literally one of the most consistent receivers in NFL history this year. He had 70 or more yards in 16 regular season games. That's tied for the most ever. He had 90 or more yards in 13 games. That's tied for the second most ever. We just saw him shred the Rams for 150 plus yards, a Rams secondary that is definitely not as good as this Patriots secondary that doesn't have one ace corner like Gonzalez. But the thing is, even though I think there are other good players in this secondary, right? They've got a couple of Cal Bears legends, and they've got Marcus Jones, and they've got Carlton Davis. They've got dudes who can cover. Like, you want Gonzo on JSN as much as possible, and Gonzo can travel with JSN, but not everywhere, because that's what's so special about JSN. It's one of many things, but he can line up everywhere. I saw a great stat from Next Gen Stats. Last year, JSN led the NFL in receiving yardage out of the slot. This year, he led the NFL in receiving yardage as an outside receiver. He is the first player in the Next Gen Stats era to do both of those things. And then on top of that, you can line him up in the backfield and he cooks teams and he puts you in a predicament where it's, fuck, now we have a linebacker on JSN for a play. And like, that could be the game right there. And Kubiak is great. And I think Kubiak is going to move him around. He is going to try to create mismatches. And if you get JSN a mismatch, he's as good as anybody. And a lot of people are mismatches for JSN, and he's as good of a route runner and as hard to read and just as versatile as anybody. So I think that's a major matchup, but ultimately my faith in JSN is one of the key factors in this game, because I look at the Seattle offense and I go, they have an A-plus weapon, A++, and there's just nothing close to that on the other side for New England.
I just think JSN's the best player in this football game.
I agree.
That's one of the big things that swings this in favor of Seattle. I love Seattle's offense in general. I think it's so interesting to me how different it is in Clint Kubiak's system. You mentioned the slot thing. I think that has a lot to do with the coordinator change, like a guy recognizing JSN's ability and going, hey, we're not just going to put you in the slot. We are going to line you up everywhere because you're so dangerous everywhere on the field. What I love most about Kubiak's system is just how different it is from NFL offenses nowadays. The Seahawks this year lined up in the single back more than every other team in the NFL except one, the Los Angeles Rams. And so what that does is it doesn't let you key in on any play type. You know what I mean? Sometimes a team will go to shotgun and they say, they throw 80%, let's say, out of this formation. They do it so often, you can't ever really get keyed in on one thing or the other. Another thing is they're so talented with their tight ends, they go multi-tight end sets the sixth most out of any NFL team this year. And that also is another little wrinkle in this system that allows them to get more blockers for when they do run the ball. But again, when they do pass it, Barner and Arroyo are very talented and can both receive out in space and make plays. It's just hard to key in on the Seattle offense, man. And they're good at – they're not great. They're not elite at passing or throwing, but they're good enough on both that it just keeps defenses on their toes. And I think the coaching battle is super interesting to me. That's the thing, though, man. Like, when I crunch all the numbers, and I don't think New England's going to get boat raced in this game. I think it's going to be very close. When I look at just everything across the board, I struggle finding any advantages for New England. Like, it's really Drake Maye. And I just think it's going to take a very specific game script in Seattle probably tripping up over themselves and shooting themselves in the foot once or twice. And I'm not, talking about like a pick six or something like that, but more so, I don't know, a missed field goal, a drive stalls out in opposing territory when they go for it on fourth down. Like, I think something's going to have to break their way for me to favor New England in this game. I fail really identifying advantages that New England is going to have coming into this game.
So, Logan, let's hear the official pick then. It sounds like we know where you're leaning.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a crazy explosive game. I think this is probably the biggest margin I've picked in a Super Bowl game in a minute. It's not much. It's only a touchdown, but I'm going to take Seattle to win this one 27-20. Like you, I don't think 47 points is like a low-scoring game. I think they're going to be long drives. I think that we're going to see some – I don't think there's going to be a ton of possessions in this game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of 3 and out, 4 and out. Maybe at the end of the game, defenses crank it up, send the blitz more, and we see offenses get off the field a little bit quicker towards the end of this game. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of possessions in this game. I think offenses are going to control the football, move the chains, and it's going to be really about capitalizing. Both of these teams were really good when they needed to, at not allowing those big shot plays and making the other team march on them for points. And so I think that's what we're going to see a lot of in this game. But, yeah, at the end of the day, I think it would take Seattle turning the ball over once or twice. I think it would take New England really running the hell out of the ball and Drake Maye having the best game of the playoffs. And it's just kind of hard for me to bank on that formula when I think Seattle's almost better all the way across the board. So I am going to take Seattle 27-20. That's my prediction.
I'm going to take Seattle to very similar margin, a little lower scoring, though. I'm going 23-17. I don't think this is a game in which Seattle pulls away because I think the Patriots' defense is quite good. And like you said, this probably is a lower possession total game. Although, I don't know, we could see some quick stops in this game, and maybe it is a turnover or two where we have a couple more quick changes of possession. The theme of the playoffs overall has been low possession totals. The Patriots have kind of been in defiance of that, though, because they've had so many just like back and forth, stop, 3 and out kind of games.
Not to cut you off, what's the weather looking like for you guys out there in the Bay?
Fantastic.
Okay.
I don't know what it's going to be on Sunday, but it's been like 60-something consistently in San Francisco. It's a little bit warmer even in Santa Clara. Let's see what they're saying. For Sunday, 62. So a little cooler than it is right now, but 62, partly cloudy. Weather shouldn't be a factor whatsoever. So hopefully that protects maybe a Drake Maye strip sack from happening or, makes turnovers a little less likely in this game. But I do still think it's going to be dictated by the defenses. I think we're in for a defensive battle. I think both teams are probably going to struggle to run the ball consistently. I think both teams are going to commit to it to some extent early, right, to try to take something off their quarterback's plate. I just think both of them are outmatched by the respective run defenses they're facing. And I think both quarterbacks are going to be under a lot of pressure. They're going to be facing teams that are elite in coverage. And I honestly think both of them probably give you one turnover in this game. I just think with the mistake proneness we've seen from Maye in the playoffs and the mistake proneness we saw from Darnold in the second half of the regular season, especially, and really overall this year, like, it seems very likely to me that the defenses just kind of have the upper hand throughout, and that it comes down to whose defense is more dominant and who is able to have that aspect of their offense that pulls through. And I'm with you. I think if New England wins this game, it's going to require a pretty great Maye performance, even if it's not exceptional on the stat sheet. I think he's going to have to be like really clutch and make some of those game-swinging plays, as you're saying, against a great defense.
Actually, I agree. I think he's going to have to hit on some of those explosive plays like we mentioned earlier. I think he's going to have to create with his legs. More so, though, I think Drake's just going to have to limit some of these negative plays that we're talking about. I think that 100%. Might be just as important as him hitting on these explosives. Like, you can't have the fumbles, and like New England has gotten lucky in some of these games that, you know, their own guys came up with it. We talked about the one that he fumbled in their own their own end zone, basically their own red zone against Houston. But he's going to have to avoid the sacks. He's going to have to avoid the fumbles, the turnovers. Like, all those have got to go out the way. Like, the standard has changed against Seattle.
That being said, I do think Maye actually has to be more aggressive in this game than the Denver game, for example, because the probabilities have flipped. That game was more so about, okay, Drake, do not fuck it up. We are the favorites. Our defense is playing great. We're facing Jared Stidham. We will win this game if you don't make the catastrophic negative play. And even though, I mean, he created effectively no plays for them, their offense was totally anemic, and I think he was probably maybe a little too in his head about not making the big mistake and conservative because of that. At least he didn't do it, and it was enough in that game. This one is different. Now you're the underdog. Now there is more specifically on your plate. You're going to have to be the guy probably who is the difference maker. You're not guiding the ship. Now you have to carry the team more so, at least the offense. And I think Maye is going to play better than he has over the last few weeks. But I still think Seattle has the upper hand in this matchup. I don't think Maye is going to overcome what is fundamentally a better Seattle roster by a decent margin. And I think Darnold in the Seahawks offense can do enough. And JSN is just like such a huge X factor in this game. I'll tell you, he's my pick for Super Bowl MVP. I'd love to see a great Darnold game, but I am so confident in JSN. I could see a game where Darnold throws for 220-something yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and JSN has 150 yards, and it's like he is clearly the MVP of the team. I just think it's so immensely valuable to have a guy who you feel can convincingly win his matchup, even against a great guy like Gonzalez and a really good team defense. And that's a huge difference maker. The more talented defense still by a decent bit, and the one special skill position player where I think Maye has the potential to be special, but like you're saying, the gap between him and Darnold right now doesn't feel that big. Maybe we feel different about it after this game, but that's where I'm at right now. Who is your pick for Super Bowl MVP?
My brain says Sam Darnold. I'm going to go out the box. I don't know. I'll take Devin Witherspoon on some weird stuff. Maybe he has a big shot, blows somebody up, has a pick in this game. I don't know. I like Witherspoon, so I'll go with him.
That's kind of fun. Well, I was going to ask along those lines, who can you see being an unsung hero or maybe an unforeseen hero of this game? Like a guy who comes in, maybe a Malcolm Smith kind of performance. I don't know. And it's like, holy shit, that guy changed this game.
Yeah, some underrated guys. I mean, if New England wins this game, I think it's going to be Robert Spillane. If he plays, I would actually monitor that injury heading into this game. He's got an ankle injury. Spillane, I know that Patriots guys have given him love. I mean, he's been one of the most underrated linebackers, I think, in the game for some time now. Since his time with Pittsburgh, with the Raiders, he's a beast. He's a game changer. I think he needs to be out there. Chason has been awesome for the Pats in these playoffs. Harold Landry, like these are starters for the Pats, but I think they're going to have to be impactful for a win. For Seattle, maybe Shaheed. Shaheed's been on my mind a lot leading up to this Super Bowl, and I don't know what it is, man. I can't get him out of my brain if it's a return. I just see a big play from Shaheed. I don't know if it's a return TD. I don't know if it's like a flea flicker, a trick play that Kubiak pulls out of his back pocket. Something in my gut is telling me Shaheed's going to have a big play in this game.
I can see it. I mean, especially because you expect there to be so much attention on JSN. And that's part of what's great about Darnold's performance against the Rams, right? He was able to spread it out and find Jake Bobo for a touchdown and find Cooper Kupp. I could see Cooper Kupp, lest we forget, Super Bowl MVP Cooper Kupp, coming up with a couple of really big plays in this one. I mean, it could be a massive run block. Like, it could be just a huge third down conversion. There are just certain things in terms of his football feel and versatility and value as a possession guy where I could see him coming up with, like, not a big stat line, but one or two key plays.
And for the Patriots, definitely offensively, Hunter Henry. Like, if there's a guy outside of Diggs and Stevenson that's going to step up, I mean, I feel like, the most dependable next guy for New England. And I don't think he's going to have a crazy game. It's kind of hard for tight ends to ever explode without a big play. But I think you would need a solid game out of him, something like, 6 catches, 70 yards, like a guy that can help them move the chains. Henry and Booty, I look as the next two most dependable guys for New England after Diggs.
Yeah, Booty has just flat out been really good this year. Like, he's a playmaker, no question. Henry's a really good shout. I think we could see maybe a little bit more reliance on the tight ends just to avoid some of those straight up corner matches that can be so daunting. And the Seahawks allowed almost 1,100 receiving yards to tight ends this season. So again, this defense is as stout, as complete as they come, but maybe the matchup there is just a little bit less daunting. And Drake Maye definitely does really like his tight ends. He really likes Hunter Henry. So that's a good shout. When I look at the Patriots, I do look at the defense in terms of a potential hero. I could see Marcus Jones being the guy after this game where it's like maybe a big punt return, maybe a big interception return. He's a guy where when he gets the ball in his hands, he's really dangerous, and he's also just very good in coverage. But we saw the pick 6 he had against the Texans. Like, he feels like the sort of guy who could be an unanticipated, flat-out hero of this game and maybe make a case for Super Bowl MVP. We'll see. Milton Williams is another guy I look at just like in terms of if he shuts down the run and creates a ton of interior pressure. It's pretty damn hard to give Super Bowl MVP to an interior defensive lineman if they don't like have a couple sacks. I mean, even Aaron Darnold didn't win it in 2021 when he was incredible. So that's probably not a Super Bowl MVP angle, probably more of just like that guy really changed this game. And then for Seattle, kind of similarly, I look at their defensive line and I'm like, DeMarcus Lawrence up against Will Campbell. He individually is not an elite pass rusher at this phase in his career, but I could see him having a monster game and he picks up 2.5 sacks. I could see Byron Murphy or Leonard Williams picking up a sack and a half, a number of pressures, really shutting down the run game.
Any of the Seattle D-line.
Literally, like I pretty much look at their whole D-line and I'm like, yeah, collectively I think they're going to do really well, and I could see any one of those guys maybe being the hero, being the game breaker in this one. And obviously the entire secondary is great, but I kind of look at that pressure specifically against the vulnerability that is the Patriots offensive line, and I could see that being a really key swing factor in this game. So it's going to be fun, dude. I am excited. Like, I think this is a very distinct matchup in terms of how quickly things turned around for both these teams and how people didn't see them coming. And of course, a huge part of that is the brilliant coaching, where Mike Macdonald in year 2 has done an unbelievable job with this team. Mike Vrabel in year 1 has done an unbelievable job. Both these guys, coach of the year frontrunners. Who do you give the coaching edge in this matchup?
This is one of the ones that I almost look at as almost as a wash. I lean Seattle. Honestly, the edge for the Patriots is Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels is the guy that I look at and I go, he's been here before so many times. He has come up with game plans against every defense. Like, if there's a guy that can get a young quarterback like Drake Maye ready for a defense of this caliber, it would be McDaniels. He's the only guy that makes me take pause about this question, but it is Mike Macdonald. Seattle is so dug in on their principles, on their discipline, on their play recognition. Like, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, dude. Just like, I trust Macdonald to prepare this team, and I also just trust Kubiak to scheme up stuff. I think Seattle has had the best coaching staff in football, and I felt that way all year long. But McDaniels makes me wonder, man. He scares me. He would be the mastermind for New England that I would be afraid that could break this game open for them.
Yeah, I definitely think it's edge Seattle here too, because it's not just this hellacious defensive personnel you're going up against. Then there's also the disguise and the simulated pressures, and it's just a lot for Drake Maye to have to deal with. The guy who's, again, been struggling under pressure, been struggling against elite defense. This is as hard a test as there is, and I expect Darnold to be great again in terms of his responsibilities. And then I do think that Kubiak is a great play caller offensively, and I think he is probably going to cook up a really good game plan and maybe one or two special calls in this one. I can see McDaniels doing the same, and I give him credit. Like last week, even in a performance when nothing was going right for them, he conjures up the flea flicker, and that's like by far their best passing play of the game. Like I think Kubiak is to me the more consistent play caller and the better play caller. McDaniels is the guy who's more prone, though, to maybe a special trick play here. And I don't know, that could be huge in this game, especially if Maye isn't playing his best and you feel like, okay, we just need an injection. We need to spark somewhere. You think about, obviously, what the 49ers were able to do with the Juwan Jennings touchdown pass to CMC. Like, that pretty much won them that football game, and that's just coaching at its best. That being said, overall, I think the Seahawks defense is so buttoned up, and I think they've got a great offensive mind. By the way, an offensive mind who is now head coach of the Raiders. Surely wouldn't have taken the Bills job if the Bills had waited to interview him. I'm sure he wouldn't want to coach Josh Allen. He'd probably much rather coach the Raiders.
So stupid. Dude, also all the damage control, this is an aside, but the damage control from the Bills is so gross, bro. And like Brandon Beane going, fuck the outsiders. Hey, read the room, dick. Like,
yeah. No, it's really good stuff, dude. And then I love it when you fire one coach and specifically smear him for saying he's the reason that we drafted Keon Coleman, which was such a bad pick, which it was, but the guy's still on the team, and your GM, who you promoted, is responsible for personnel decisions. And then you promote a guy to head coach who says, actually, I loved Keon so much, I stood on the table for him. The best thing that ever could have happened for him is me getting hired. Where is the consistency within the Bills organization? What the hell is the decision-making process? Not going to be relevant in the Super Bowl because they didn't make the Super Bowl, and the schmucks up top are a part of the reason for that. So there you have it, folks. I think we pretty much covered everything, Logan. Unless you're expecting some sort of Mr. Beast appearance, some sort of viral Drewski moment mid-game. Oh, well, you're going to be watching the Turning Point halftime show you were telling me.
Yes, I'm so excited about Kid Rock.
Because they said Kid Rock is going to just be straight slurs. They said anything goes.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the show, I believe.
Yeah, well, that's what the Super Bowl is all about.
Maybe Nicki Minaj will be there.
I hope so.
She's going to take a break from protecting her, pedophile husband and brother. But yeah, so I'm going to be enjoying that. I'm boycotting the halftime. Actually, I'm probably not going to watch the Super Bowl in time. They've got that Bad Bunny guy doing the halftime show.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch the game. I like that there's a team called the Patriots in it. I do think that is very American.
Of course, for the 250th anniversary of America.
Right. I mean, I would have preferred Eagles, bald eagle, against the Patriots. Ultimately, though, with the Bad Bunny thing, and it's just like, I'll turn on the Turning Point halftime show, and that'll be it for me. So I don't even know why the fuck we talked about the game. I'm not going to watch it, and I'm certainly not going to talk about it afterwards. We're certainly not going to be live right after, Logan, talking about the Super Bowl. It's crazy, man. Crazy. A new unexpected champion to be crowned. Very excited
awesome
to see how this goes
season.
Down.
I love
it. Has been.
I know some people don't like the randomness and the volatility. If you don't, I would tell you to go watch tennis or basketball. Like if you want I like the unpredictability of the NFL. I always have. I think it is the selling point to me about the sport of football, the randomness of it all, and how important every single individual play is in the sport. I love this season, man. Like, even though it's been so unexpected, I've been wrong so many times this year about so many different teams, but I would never have guessed this, man. Like, I think this has been one of the craziest seasons I can remember, and just one of the most unpredictable. But it's why we watch. It's why we play the games. And here we go, man. I'm juiced. I am rooting for Darnold, admittedly. Well, one is my my hate that just will never go away for the entire New England franchise. Sure. That's always in my heart. But also, I just think it would be awesome for the redemption story and the arc that Darnold has been on. It would be one of the greatest football stories ever.
It really would. And I agree with you on the parity point in the NFL. And I think what's so specifically cool about it is we don't know if these teams are going to be back. You never know in the NFL. But the safest bet is usually, hey, we've got the really elite special quarterback, right? That's the guy who's going to give you the best chance to get back. You still don't know if that's going to happen, right? It didn't happen with Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, after they won theirs. Dan Marino never got back to one. Obviously, it's most important just what is the state of your roster and overall organization. But with the Seahawks, right, they've got an above average, good quarterback, not the sort of special guy who it's like, yeah, he's going to keep raising our floor every year. Drake Maye, I think, is really good. Drake Maye, I think, is going to be great in this league. That being said, in these playoffs, he hasn't been very good, and I still think the state of the roster, like, are they a lock to win the division again next year? Absolutely not, because they clearly did benefit from the schedule. So what I'm saying is it may be that neither of these teams replicate this success, and that's part of what's really cool about the NFL is, like, how a single team in a single season will be immortalized for winning the Super Bowl. And some of those one-offs are like the coolest thing. Like the 85 Bears, right? One of the greatest teams ever. One of the greatest defenses ever, certainly. And the next year they were actually really, really great again and just lost because of a bunch of quarterback injuries. But nevertheless, like you can be one of the best teams ever and be a one-off in the NFL. The 2000 Ravens are another GOAT-level defense. Obviously, they win in 2012, but that's such a different team. That's more than a decade later. I think it's very cool you can have these sort of single installments of truly great dominant champions, but they don't necessarily replicate it because somebody else builds up really quick around them and they lose a couple of key guys, and that's just how the NFL works. There's so much changeover, and I mean, basketball is nothing like that. If you are a dominant champion in the NBA, you're going to be back. In the NFL, not necessarily. The Eagles were a dominant champion last year. The Eagles were a strong Super Bowl champion, and they got bounced in the first round this year and like played a lot of just okay football because things change really fast.
Every individual component to the team is vital, and when you lose one, you lose two. You change, the variables ever so slightly, and that's what's so fascinating, man. One piece, one player, one coordinator. You got to capitalize on the single-year windows, and both of these teams have maxed out, right? Like you look back at the Lions from last year, and you look at it as a potential missed opportunity with what Ben Johnson has done. That's what makes football so fascinating, man. Every season just feels so important, and you got to strike. I'm super excited, man, and even though I'm taking Seattle in this game, I think it's one of the most unpredictable Super Bowls that I don't know. I just think everything's on the table, man. I can't wait.
We'll see. I mean, Seattle has played a lot of really exceptional football, and just like in terms of some of the advanced stuff, DVOA, right? Truly exceptional this year because of how great they played against a really tough schedule. So, yeah, they're the favorite, but this whole season has been unpredictable in so many ways. And whenever you're walking into a game where it's like you don't know exactly what you're getting out of the offenses and out of the quarterbacks, like that quarterback battle could be a huge component, and we don't really know which way that's going to go. Not to say you ever know, but I think there's less of an inkling than usual. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to see who are like the dudes who have career-defining games, like who's going to really rise to the occasion, even if it is some of those unsung heroes. I think that'll be really fun. That's always a cool thing about the Super Bowl. Really nothing better, Logan, especially not when it's here in the beautiful, glorious Bay Area. And we got the Stay Hot Boys here. The Stay Hot Boys actually currently trapped. I've currently got them in my trap door just below me. I saw them. I said, hey, guys, come over last night, and I'm never going to let them go. So that's pretty fun. If you guys hear them screaming, don't mind that. They're just trying to go viral. And we will go viral this Sunday night when we see you guys for our Super Bowl post-game show. That being said, we've got another episode before that because we got to talk about some of these NBA trades going down at the deadline. Jaren Jackson Jr. just got traded. We'll talk about that a lot more in depth on that full show, but I did make a TikTok, put a video out on social giving my initial thoughts on that, and so seems like more is going to go down. We'll see. Always a wild time, the NBA trade deadline. You can find all of our full episodes talking about NBA and NFL on our YouTube channel and across all audio platforms. You can follow us across social media, TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at nerd_sesh to see clips from the show, graphics from the show, and all of our short-form trivia content. And today, you guys actually got to see our faces. Not just Logan and I grinning at each other frozen for an hour and a half, which is what those of you on video saw yesterday. This time, actual living, breathing, moving boys in full color. Not being controlled on a string, not puppets, real guys.
If you Stay Hot subscribers want Theo, Matt, and Bladen to return, I require a $1 million donation during our Super Bowl live stream.
Yeah. No, make it
You've
$1
been
billion.
warned.
Make it $1 billion. Make it $1 trillion.
$1 billion.
On second thought, somebody get me a photo of Logan's feet, and we'll just call it even. Because I can resell that for God knows how much. Or I'll just keep it as a personal piece of memorabilia.
I don't think you can put a price on that.
I probably can't. You're probably right. It's the equivalent of what? I mean, the
Got to be like
Holy Grail?
a little bit more value than the Geno Smith plushie stock, right? Just a little bit.
I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about Geno,
okay.
bro. But shout out to the Seahawks. I mean, how they did it in spite of Geno, I don't know. Is it all some sort of government scheme to make Geno look bad? Right now they become an all-time great defense. Now they actually build out a legit offensive line. Like, seems a little convenient. Oh, now they have Clint Kubiak. Okay. We're noticing. This is how Shadur's fans talk about him. Shadur fans talk about him like the world is actually conspiring. That's how I'm going to start talking about Geno. He'll be back. Get him the fuck out of Vegas. He will be back. The redemption story for Geno is not over. He already had redemption part 1. Now comes redemption part 2. He comes back to the Seahawks. He wins another Super Bowl for the organization. His first, and he wins Super Bowl MVP. That's in the cards at some point down the line. Stay tuned. It's going to be awesome.
Made me almost emotional. That was beautiful.
Yeah. Well, it's totally imaginary, and it's not going to happen. But with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I've been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.